New aero rules introduced to cut down on downforce ahead of 2022's new concept cars mean that Formula 1's 2020 machinery will probably go down as the fastest ever. But there was one team in particular that rose above everyone else. So how exactly did Mercedes create the fastest F1 car ever? That's what we'll find out in this episode. Let's get started. Originally intended to be the last of its generation, the Mercedes team poured its resources into the W11 as it not only refined its own concepts but also incorporated others too. It also featured an innovative solution that courted a wealth of attention from F1's fans and the rest of the paddock too. Perhaps it's a fitting time to delve under the covers of the W11 and explore the inner workings of one of F1's most dominant machines. Compared to Mercedes' W10 from 2019, the W11 side pods had received considerable attention over the off-season. Mercedes had been the last to adopt the concept that Ferrari first showcased in 2017 and required the crash structures on the side to be shifted down low in order to improve the car's aerodynamics. The 2017 season was the first time since the side impact structures had been introduced in 2014 that the teams really had any latitude in terms of where they could be placed. Ferrari took advantage of this and repositioned them, improving flow around and through the car, which also enabled it to reduce the size of its radiators. Mercedes followed suit, opting for the higher up side pod inlets to reduce the interruption of airflow entering the radiators from the suspension. Then, the first major improvement on the W11 came in the shape of the DAS. Pre-season testing is always a great opportunity to see the new batch of cars put through their paces for the first time and to study the different development directions that the team have gone in. As testing was being broadcast to viewers at home, the cars were also equipped with their onboard cameras. For Mercedes, this meant that system it had been working on for some time would be uncovered in an instant. Footage captured from onboard the W11 showed the Mercedes drivers pushing the steering wheel back and forth along the back straight, coinciding with the change in the toe angle, uncovering Mercedes' dual-axis steering system. This had all been made possible by a new steering assembly that had required some innovative thinking from the team. Mercedes had the system in mind for some time but had to jump through several hoops before the FIA had considered it legal. For example, a previous iteration of DAS that the team presented to the governing body was activated by a button on the steering wheel. The FIA, in communication with the team over the operational parameters of the system, insisted that the steering function must be paired with an input related to the movement of the steering wheel. Undeterred, the team set out to find a way to do this whilst also being wary of increasing the weight of the system to the point where the system's potential would be neutralized. Allowing the drivers to heat up their front tires more quickly, owing to the increased movement of the tire rubber, the system perhaps proved even more invaluable over the course of the season than they had originally thought, with what seemed like a higher frequency of safety cars and red flag restarts than would originally be the case, possibly owing to the revised calendar. Alongside those new inclusions, the W11 was peppered with new and interesting features. A design that it was especially proud of heading into 2020 was its decision to alter the lower rear suspension wishbone geometry, with the rear leg fixed at a point much further back on the crash structure than usual. In preparation for 2020, Mercedes had also paid considerable attention to its front brake assembly, looking at ways to further its aerodynamic needs. This had come about as a response to the lack of aerodynamic furniture allowed on the front wing owing to the new rules introduced in 2019. Mercedes had now used a blown axle under the old rule set when it was allowed, but it looked at ways to replicate this effect nonetheless, knowing that it could reduce the wake turbulence created by the front tire. The upshot of these changes would be the ability to make alterations to the barge boards and floor, all the features of which build on the designs implemented in the car's predecessor. With the Australian Grand Prix being cancelled, it would take a few more months than originally planned for the cars to turn a wheel in competitive anger. This helped Mercedes out of a bind, having encountered issues with its powertrain during testing. Having been able to enact a fix ahead of the eventual season opener at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix, Mercedes was assured of better reliability, but there were still issues to iron out. Known for its aggressive curbs that have broken more than the odd front wing, the Red Bull Ring is also around 700 meters above sea level, which had an impact on brakes and power units. Although the manufacturers conduct many hours of testing of the power units on dynos, the rarefied air means that teams have to sacrifice aerodynamic performance for extra cooling. But another factor that looked set to trip up Mercedes at the opening event was the vibrations from the curbs that upset their gearbox and the sensors attached to it. The drivers were told by the pit wall to avoid the curbs at all costs during the first race of the season. This cost them a considerable amount of lap time, and it did result in the field catching up in the closing stages. This led to Hamilton being demoted to 4th after the race following the 5-second penalty for his collision with Alex Albon, despite finishing the race 2nd on the road. As a short-term solution, given the Styrian Grand Prix was coming just a week later at the same venue, the team rerouted and shielded some of the cabling running through the gearbox. Again, the drivers were warned to stay off the curbs. Although this came with a lap time penalty, Mercedes took a 1-2 finishing 20 seconds up the road from the closest Red Bull. Developments were still fed through the opening races, but relatively speaking, Mercedes stood still. Meanwhile, Red Bull, which was seemingly throwing the kitchen sink at the RB16, appeared to catch up with its rival, which probably gave a false sense of where both are heading into this season. Furthermore, using more of its time to develop the W12 ahead of schedule will undoubtedly give it more headroom when it comes to the 2022 Challenger, especially as this year it will be hit by the new sliding scale of wind tunnel and CFD usage. As champions, Mercedes will only have 90% of the allotted time, whereas its competitors will have progressively more depending on how far they finish down the order. Only time will tell how much this will blunt its progress in both short and long term, with the aim of the rule change to try and narrow the performance deficit of the entire field. All said and done, the W11 can be considered the fastest F1 car to have graced the championship so far. But could the reduction in downforce brought on by the new regulations have spurred Mercedes onto further greatness? And that's been it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. Apart from that, I hope you're an awesome day, and bye bye.